Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Game Develop Repeat. It has been a full month, and I am excited to be back. Today, we're talking about objectively good game design and objectively bad game design. I'm going to talk about a couple of games. I got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which might be a little controversial because it's pretty well reviewed and I have some pretty big gripes with it. And Darktide, Warhammer Darktide. It's sort of a PvE shooter. I like it a lot, and it's not as well reviewed. So I want to talk about the design elements in each of those games that I think are objectively good or bad. I'm going to focus on the bad for Seven Rebirth and the good for Dark Tide. I'm going to talk about some other stuff too, but you'll see what that is as we go through the episode. Thank you, as always, for joining me, especially after such a long break. This is Game Develop Repeat. Now, while I will be talking about the flaws of a game, my goal is not to dunk on a game or to say that it's terrible or fundamentally bad or that you're wrong for liking it or whatever. That's not my angle. My angle is to discover a little bit of truth about game design by talking about things that did really bother me while I was playing this game. So, let's start with the negative, and then we'll move to a more positive place afterwards. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth drove me insane. The last time that I tried to play this game, I stopped playing games for several months because I was so frustrated by what it had done to a game that I really loved as a child, or to just the change in what I like since I was a child. I'm not entirely sure, but I was very frustrated by this game, and when I started taking a break from podcasting, something in me said, it's time to finish Rebirth. I don't know why, but that's what happened. So I dove in. I think this one's called Rebirth. It's part two of the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy. I don't really love the naming convention of them. I always get them mixed up. But here's my issue with Rebirth. It is too expansive without reason to motivate me to explore those expanses. Or rather, there are too many things that I am motivated to do or compelled to do that are not at all rewarding or fun. It's got that Ubisoft node thing going on where there's a million things on the map that are the same that compel you to explore them just for the sake of completion. And then you explore them and you go, this isn't that great. Or in the case of Final Fantasy VII, I'm excited to explore the stuff, and then the process of exploring it was not even close to as rewarding as I expected it to be. There were little things that bothered me the whole way through. I would explore it, and then I would, rather than get rewarded, I would get annoyed by either a story element that did not jive with me, a character, Chadley, who would be nagging me, who I'm just trying to ignore as fast as possible, a side quest for character development that teaches me things about a character that I originally liked in 7, but is now taking a different direction in the remake that I don't like as much. A lot of this is just my opinion, but where can we find something that I can actually say is objectively bad? Now, here is the big picture framing that I'm going to have here. The objectively bad mistake is to set an expectation that excites people and then deliver something that does not match that expectation and is far less exciting or enjoyable. I think this is why it's so difficult to make a good remake, both in film and in games. And I think that there are a lot of moments in Final Fantasy VII that did this, but they're balanced out by a lot of moments where they hit or exceed the expectation. The music is undoubtedly phenomenal. The visuals are mind-blowing. The combat is really good. The level design is, for the most part, extremely rewarding and cool. But there is something in this game that is just not right. There's a few things. The character development is, in my mind, at points, objectively bad. Now, I'm not going to die on that hill completely, but I do think that they really did a bad job with Red 13. I fully believe that they took a character that is meant to be stoic and mysterious and pretty interesting, but intentionally slightly unexplored, except for in a few moments that kind of let you pierce the veil. I think they took that and they overexplored it and they pivoted in weird directions and destroyed the the original intention of that character's design and of its role in the story. And I would argue that was a bad pivot. But listen, I see where you could argue that that's not actually objectively bad. If somebody enjoys it, if at least 20-30% of players enjoy it and think it's a good change, then I guess it's not objectively bad. So let's define objectively bad for a second. I think if you are doing something that is interpreted by like 90% of people as worse than the original, I think that's bad. If you're doing something, well, that's for a remake, but I think if you were doing a game design that 90% of people find frustrating and your intention is not to frustrate them, then it is bad. If it is delivering a different result than your intention for the vast majority of players, it's bad design. That's hard to argue for storytelling, but I feel like they were trying to give me an emotional experience with Red 13 and have me connect to him and feel bad for him, and instead I was annoyed. I feel like Chadley was an attempt to have a fun, playful, goofy assistant kind of guy, and instead I was annoyed. So, I'm I would argue that those were bad choices. Now, in terms of the actual design of the game, there is one mini game that I'm going to point to in this game that was genuinely just full of design mistakes. There's other examples of this, but this is the shining example that I'm going to pull from. They took throwing a box and turned it into a weirdly complicated, underexplained, overexplored mini game. You have to play as Cait Sith, you have to pick up a box, you have to aim it with, I would argue, overly complicated controls that have been done better 10, 20 years ago. And you have to do it under time restrictions, you have to do it repeatedly, and it's just annoying. It's not like a huge frustration, but it's in a section of the game that's supposed to feel pretty tense, pretty puzzly. You're trying to escape, and the way that they present these puzzles becomes, oh, you better pick up some boxes and sit them here. The real difficulty is just figuring out how to throw a box because we've made controls that kind of seem like the guy who designed them was inspired by Bennett Foddy. Like, not genuinely, it's not that hard, but it's just kind of dumb and clunky. And I don't like that. And I think that's genuinely bad. I think bad control design is one of the places that we can look at and very easily say that's genuinely bad. That is universally a bad design choice. Also, not being able to remap controls is probably just genuinely a universally bad design choice. That is not something that Final Fantasy VII did, at least not as far as I know. I didn't actually try to remap the controls. I assume they have remappable controls. It just popped in my head. Not being able to remap controls, bad. You should include that in your game, right? For accessibility reasons, for convenience reasons, for a million different reasons, you are not objectively right about how the controls should work for your game to the extent where you don't allow your player to change them. They may work perfectly for you, but they're not going to work perfectly for everybody. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Here's another element of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that drove me a little crazy. And there's a big picture tie-in to this. I know I'm going on and on about this. I'm sorry. I have a lot of feelings about this game. There is a puzzle, and I'm using air quotes, that is just, this cord isn't long enough. Find a way to plug this power cord in. And I go, okay, I guess I'll move this box out of the way or something. And then that was it. That's the whole puzzle. And there's an additional complicating factor to this, which is that sometimes I'll just put it this way. You can't tell how long the cord is visually. There's no visual indication. If you pull on it, it always looks completely extended. And the only way that you know that it's completely extended is if you walk as far away from it as possible, and then it pops up a little text box that says, "Oh, it's not long enough." It sucks. It's a puzzle that shouldn't have been included. There's a lot of little animations and things that are presented as if they're puzzles, but are not. They're just rotate the wheel for 10, 15, 20 seconds. Okay, you finished the animation. It's annoying. And those are elements that I think are bad. Now, maybe there's an argument for them contributing to immersion somehow, but my argument against that would be, aren't there a million better ways to do that? I think that the little mini game puzzles in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth are objectively bad. I don't remember experiencing a single puzzle in that game that made me feel good when I completed it. Every single puzzle that I did in that game made me go, "Ah, oh, Jesus, that's the solution." Or, oh, I can't believe they're making me do this again. Oh, I just have to move this box? Great. Great. I felt like the puzzles were easier than toddler level puzzles most of the time in a game that is not really made for toddlers. But then I look at the story sometimes and I go, is it? What's going on with the story? So okay, now I'm getting to where I'm just like attacking it for no good reason. Let's talk about some good design elements. First, from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I think the combat is genuinely extremely interesting. I do think it's a little overwhelming, but I split my gameplay between two big chunks and I forgot things in between, so fair enough. I think the combat is very cool. I think it's an interesting blend of turn-based and action. I think they perform the action stuff really well. I like the way that they've upgraded the ATB system. I like some of the stuff about how materia is working and how summon unlocks are working. I like some of the overarching story changes that they did are interesting. I don't think they fully delivered on everything, but I like them. I think the combat is genuinely objectively good, and I think that there are some tweaks that could be made to it to make it more enjoyable for me personally, but I think it's really good. I think the game has a little bit of an identity crisis in terms of a few things because it's such a big game and they've cast such a wide net and they're trying to put something for everybody and they end up just underdoing a lot of stuff. I think part 1 was better than part 2, and that's unfortunate because part 2 was so much bigger and I just there's so much stuff in there that I just like trudged through begrudgingly. I was so close to like a 100% completion rate and I just went screw this. I'm not doing all that. This is ridiculous. It's a bad sign when every time you find something new in the game and the game is trying to present it as cool and exciting, you go, "Oh god, there's more?" Sorry, I meant to be talking about the positives. The amount of stuff in the game is very cool. And there are moments in there where I go, "Ooh, I'm genuinely excited about this." Everything revolving around the combat was genuinely exciting because it gives you a variety of options that make it interesting without putting you down this like narrow path of you have to execute in exactly this way, otherwise you cannot win. You can optimize through the game, but you don't have to go down one path. You are not railroaded, and that is cool. That's very good combat. You can focus on turn based, you can focus on action based, you can focus on dodging and blocking and like being a little bit more action oriented in general without worrying about the strategy as much, or you can focus a lot more on just the strategy and how you're using your abilities. It's nice. I think it could be a little better just because I think the personality crisis thing going on is a little weird and I think it is spreading itself too thin, but I love the ideas that they're exploring and I think that there's stuff in there that is just fundamentally very cool, very good game design. So there's my compliment for 7 Rebirth and probably why I stuck with it. Now, have you played Warhammer? Any version of it? Because I kind of hadn't. I'm not a big Warhammer guy. I like to keep my money and my time and my sanity. I think I would lose my mind painting the little figures, but I think also it would probably be my favorite thing that I've ever done if I got into it. Now, having said that, I haven't gotten into all of that. I love the world. It's cool. I've just listened to some short stories on YouTube about some Ogrins, Bob and oh no, what was the other one? Rob and Bob, maybe? It was tragic. It was this story about some Ogrins told in the voice of Ogrins, which are like kind of big, dumb ogres. And it ruled. It was very cool. So, I really enjoyed that. I thought that was extremely cool. And this was all because my brother was getting me into Darktide. So I like the world. I like the like gods. I like I'm gonna say the wrong names for so many things on this. There's this plague god, Nurgle. I hope I got that right. I used footage of him for a sound design reel when I was first learning sound design. Nurgle is awesome and cool and creepy and gross and exciting, and the lore is interesting, blah, blah, blah. So, anyway, I'm playing Darktide, which is a PvE shooter, team shooter. Think kind of Deep Rock Galactic. It's not that well reviewed. It's in like the high 70s, low 80s maybe on Steam, but it's very good. Here are some things that I think it does well, objectively well. It has a progression system that is reminiscent of Diablo 2. So you have a skill tree that is adjustable for your build for your character. It has weapon upgrades that you can do. It has so you're not getting drops and stuff in the way that you would in like Diablo 2, but you're getting weapon drops at the end of each run, at the end of each map. Essentially, you're going in for 10, probably 15 to 30 minutes, clearing a level, accomplishing a mission, and then coming out, getting rewards, getting experience, getting currency. And the progression is satisfying. You hit level 30 on a character pretty quickly, which is the max level. And then you start customizing all your weapons, figuring out a build that you like, experimenting with things. And that's one element of the game. You've got this layer of experimentation, which is very nicely, cleanly separated from the actual combat and time in the game, right? You have your area where you set up, and then you launch your mission, and now you're going and you're stuck with what you set up. Good, beautiful, love it. Classic, too. That's in all sorts of games. You've got distinct classes you can use, and you've got multiple progression systems that get different levels of complicated as you look at them. Now, objectively good features. That separation of time that you prepare for combat and when you're actually in combat is really nice. I know that this is a common gameplay thing. I know that this is in all sorts of games, but it is a good design pattern. You are giving two games in one when you do this. You have a section of the game that is peaceful and calm and thoughtful and used for character design and upgrading and filtering through options and thinking. And then you have a section of the game that is very clearly and distinctly marked for the adventuring, for the challenge, for the picking up new stuff. This is everywhere. You go into town, no combat. There you go. You're in your safe zone. Start doing your setup. Do whatever you want. You exit town. You're on a mission. Now, what Darktide does really well, and what a lot of games do really well, is when you're in a mission, you are in a mission. You're not just kind of exploring and wandering around. You don't end up going, oh, maybe I'll play with this part of my build. No, you're fighting. You're going. You've got an objective. It does level design really well as well. The levels are confusing and a little bit labyrinthian to me sometimes. I have a very bad sense of direction, but it does this thing where you can't go back. Right? It gets you to a certain point, and it's very clear that you are not going to be able to go back, but it's also a quick decision. You just keep going. They're fairly linear, while not feeling linear at all. They've got enough complexity to it. I don't actually know how they pull it off because I'm always able to navigate the level. I always feel like I know where to go, but they're never boring. It's not just a straight line. It is genuinely compelling level design, and I think within the genre, this is a very good execution of level design. They've managed to make their levels not boring, not too confusing, even for somebody like me with a bad sense of direction. That's phenomenal. I'll just tack on one more thing that I love about this game, and then I will mention a couple little flaws. This game has such a rewarding feeling during combat. it has a sense of what you were doing matters, and the combat feels different from any other shooter. It is melee heavy with ranged as part of it. You can't just do ranged. You can't just do melee. You have to be able to dodge. You have to be able to shoot. You got to be able to aim it. And if you really hate aiming, you can go in on melee very, very hard. But occasionally you're going to have to be shooting, right? You don't have any tool that you are not using, but you get to specialize and focus on your strengths. The melee feels deeply satisfying. The dodging, the blocking, parrying, not so much, but you can push enemies. It's good. The sound design is extremely good for telling you when and where an enemy is coming from. And oh, the communication. This is what's interesting. I'm going to talk about what I love about the communication in this game and what I have a very mixed opinion on. What I love is that this game has created an automated communication system between player characters that is satisfying, adds lore to the game, communicates things that are frustrating you as a player pretty consistently, and eliminates toxicity. If your character has low ammunition and somebody else grabs ammo, your character will automatically, in character, in a lore friendly way, give the other guy a hard time about taking your ammo. This is not something you activate. They just automatically play the conflict out. And it sounds like it might be annoying. It's not. It's really good. Your character says something, their character responds, it gets fully resolved, and you as a player have a little feeling in your head that goes, okay, they heard that. I don't have to say anything. And that teaches people to be better players too. They've implemented this cool little feedback system that is just lovely. It's just so nice. Now, the game does not communicate well about what its stats do, what all sorts of things. The progression systems, you just have to experiment or look it up. The game does not communicate some of its strengths to you at all. It just goes, they'll figure it out. And I think that's why it has a low rating. I think that's an interesting choice. I think there are reasons why that's good. Like, exploring on your own is really good. Trying to figure it out makes it more fun. If they spelled everything out for you, it might be less enjoyable. But man, oh man, I really did not understand how weapon upgrades, weapon masteries, all these things worked, and I didn't even really know to look into it. So eventually I figured it out, and I was like, oh wait, this rules. This is very cool. But it requires some exploration, and it's really not very complicated. It's just that they don't do a good job of pointing you towards it. So there's my Darktide rant. So in summary, on this portion, I think there are objectively bad designs. I think there are objectively good designs. Pardon the little background noise. I think that a really good design is one that accomplishes what it is trying to accomplish in an enjoyable manner. I think a objectively bad design is one that tells the player, hey, here's what this is for. And then the player goes, what the heck are you talking about? That I don't know how to use that. Or is designed to do something that it is almost incapable of doing or is useless for. It is the door handle that is too high to reach without jumping, grabbing it, and pushing off the wall. It is that's not something that's happened to me, by the way. It's the teacup that has a intentionally like impossible. Oh no, it's not a teacup. It is a teapot. There's an image of a teapot that's designed so that the handle is directly under the spout. So the only way to grab it is from the handle, but then it pours directly onto you and burns you. It's that. There is objectively bad design, and it's hard to pinpoint in games sometimes, but it absolutely exists. And what's even harder to see is the objectively good stuff. And there's a lot of that floating around. But sometimes you gotta notice the bad stuff to be better at noticing the good. Can you tell I've been on a break? I got a lot to say today. God dang. I'll try to save some for later, but let's talk about game design. What have I been doing the past month? Not that much, but I did learn a lot about parallax backgrounds in Godot. Here's my question. How did I end up learning about parallax backgrounds in Godot? That was not my goal. Well, this is an interesting one, and I'll try to go through it quickly. I picked up some tutorial lesson course bundles on Humble Bundle about Godot. I opened one up. I went, this sucks. I don't want to go through this. I don't want to read through this and follow every step. This is going through all these fundamentals that I don't know anything about. And then I went, but there's also stuff I don't know about. So there's all this stuff I already know, and then it's going through these fundamentals, and I'm like, okay, whatever, I know this. Oh, there's something I don't know. And I went, I'm not going through this step by step. I'm skimming, and I'm finding things I don't know, and I'm making notes, and I'm exploring them. So I ran into something that is used for 3D games. It was like something environment. I don't remember what it was called, but basically they were using it to set up the background color, and it's used for a lot of other stuff, glow effects and that kind of thing. And then I was like, okay, that's probably not for 2D, but let's see if it is. And then if it's not, let's explore other options. Long story short, I found tiny ways that you can use it for 2D that are probably inefficient. And then I looked through every other option for making a background in 2D, and I was getting a little elaborate with it too. I was like, what about video footage? What about, well, tile map, of course, but like, what about this? What about that? And then I saw parallax, and I was looking into parallax, and I went, I haven't looked into that. I don't really understand how it works. Let's play around with it. Long story short, I ended up playing around with it enough to make something vaguely resembling mountains in the background, trees closer, a fence in front of the trees, all moving at a different speed. And when I say vaguely resembling, I mean literally just gradient textures slapped on in different layers, moving at different speeds though. And I got 3 layers of trees within that like tree layer, so it created this nice effect of like a deep forest behind you. Each layer of trees had a different color, and it was cool. I was very happy with it, and I was like, okay, I want to figure out a way to play with this. Haven't figured that out yet, but I do want to do some more stuff with parallax backgrounds. I have an idea for a game idea there, and it was very fun. It was very enjoyable, and I started asking myself, why was this so fun? I think it's because I was learning. It's because I was exploring a new concept and just riding the wave. I had very vague intentions to begin with, and then I was just turning every corner and discovering something new, which is an incredible feeling. And I love discovering new stuff, especially if it makes me feel inspired and feel like there's something cool I can do with it. Now, I haven't really kept up with that since then. I kind of got a hit of it and was like, ooh, this is fun. This is what I want game development to feel like. This is what I'm excited about. And then I backed off and I had to take care of some life stuff and so on. But like, I don't know why I backed off of it so much, and I want to lean back into it. So that's part of what I'm figuring out now, and part of what I'm doing is how do I like let myself have that fun regularly instead of just focusing on trying to be productive or trying to finish a project or whatever, because it's important to me that I enjoy learning new things in game development and that I have a reason to come to it consistently and do some game development, because sometimes I struggle with that. So that's kind of where I'm at with development. That's that's everything I've got. Let's wrap this up with the final section of the show. I don't so much have a question for you this week. I'm just grateful that you're listening after this long break. So thank you for stopping by and checking out the show again. And I'm going to keep exploring game dev a little bit. I'm in a weird place. One of my notes I had for myself is how do I feel about game dev right now? And I feel excited and occasionally conflicted. I think I put too much weight on it sometimes. I think sometimes it feels like this whole big serious thing when in reality it's just, hey, let's play with this. Let's make some stuff. Let's see what I can do and what I can learn. But I get in my head and I go, what about I got to make it a career? I got to do this. I got to do that. It's got to be so much. It's got to be so exciting. And it doesn't have to be. It can just be a nice experience. So I'm exploring that. I'm exploring the part of it that is just, hey, come on, sit down, grind a little. And the part of it that's just, hey, have some fun, enjoy it. And I'm trying to find that balance. So I don't have a specific project that I'm working towards completing. I've been looking at, when I made Soot, I was very excited about it and it was very fun. And then I don't think I've captured that in the same way. Not that I need to capture it in exactly the same way, but I'd like to, take some pressure off and just enjoy developing and enjoy making the podcast, which I think I did today. So that's everything I've got for you. Thank you, as always, for joining me. I will see you in the next one. Until then, get out there, make some stuff, and have fun with it. Bye-bye.